up, you guys? It's your girl Ubuhle.benkosiiiii, and it's True Crime Tuesday. Before we get started with this video, please kindly subscribe to my channel, press that like button, and share this video, and drop a comment down below what other true crime cases you want me to cover. Today's case, I cannot put a heavier disclaimer than, like, if you thought Moses Sotole was bad, then ma'am, sir. Today's case includes pedophilia, sexual assault, sodomy, necrophilia, just a bunch of rubbish. So please don't watch this if you're sensitive to such things. Ooh, okay, let's get into today's story. Stewart Wilken. Stewart Wilken was born on November the 11th, 1966 in Boksburg, South Africa. Better be careful with these folks from Boksburg, because that's the same place Moses Sotole was from. And fun fact, most serial killers are born in November. He was born second of two children, and when he was just 6 months old and his sister 2 years old, their parents abandoned them at a nearby phone booth. They were then found by a domestic worker who then took them to her employer, whose name was Doop. Doop was extremely abusive. Doop would burn Stewart's genitals with cigarettes, make Stewart eat out of bowls with dogs' ate, and force Stewart to partake in acts of bestiality. All before he was 2 years old. At some point during this time, Stewart's sister disappeared, and when Wilken was 2 years old, his neighbors, well, the Wilkens, that's where he got his name, decided to adopt him out of compassion, as they saw he was undernourished and infested with lice. Stewart didn't do too well in school and failed grade 3 times. He was constantly being mocked for being adopted, and one day he assaulted his teacher for not intervening, which led to him being beat up in front of the entire school by his principal. He would bite his adopted mother and other children, and his adopted mother would punish him for things like wetting the bed by locking him in a room or in a cupboard sometimes. He was once also punished at school for retaliating to a boy who had attacked him, and his adopted mother did not take his side, and from that day onwards, Stewart decided that he was going to be his own family. He started smoking marijuana at the age of 8, and when he was 9 years old, a deacon invited him over to his house after Sunday school, where this said deacon proceeded to sodomize him. And in this year, his adopted father also died. Eventually, his adopted mother felt that she was overwhelmed by him and sent him to a reformatory. And here it was no better, where he was punished by being locked outside with no clothes and was sodomized by the older boys. He often tried to run away, but he always had to return. After he completed grade 11, he enlisted in the South African Army, but was discharged after 4 years after attempting to commit suicide. He then moved in with his mother in Dispatch, Port Elizabeth. Stewart met his first wife, Lynne, in a club, and on December the 25th, 1986, they had a baby girl named Wane. They didn't have a happy marriage, as Stewart would often assault Lynne, and Lynne would get him arrested for smoking marijuana. They got divorced, and Stewart Wilken vowed to himself to never ever sleep with a white woman in fear that it might be his long lost sister. Stewart then met a colored woman named Veronica, who had 2 sons already. They got married, and in that marriage they had 2 daughters together. This was also not a happy marriage as well, as Veronica's parents accused Stewart of sodomizing the 2 sons, and at this point, this is when Stewart moved to live in the bushes near Happy Valley. Wilken's first confirmed victim was murdered in February of 1990. He was a 15-year-old street kid who Wilken sodomized at the Celia's Secondary School in Sydenham. On October the 3rd, 1990, after having an argument with his wife, Stewart picked up 25-year-old sex worker Virginia Gisman on Russell Road. He paid her, then took her to Dagbreek Primary School. where he penetrated her through the anus. When she complained, he strangled her with her own clothes and ejaculated while she died. He left her body at the schoolyard. Imagine being a learner at that school. And January 10th, 1991, Wilken was solicited by 37-year-old Marcia Pappenfuss at the Red Lion Hotel. They went to St. George's Park, and when Marcia demanded her pay, Stewart flew into a fit of rage and strangled her and sodomized her and left her body in the park. On October 21st, 1991, Wilken met a 14-year-old street kid who had apparently agreed to have sex with him for money. Wilken took the boy to St. George's Park, and when he also demanded money, this angered Wilken, so he sodomized and strangled him. Somewhere between June and September of 1993, Stewart met another street kid and solicited him. They went to Target Kloof, where Wilken sodomized, strangled him, and left his body in a nearby ravine. On July 27, 1995, Wilken murdered another sex worker. Her name was Georgina Bonisiwa Zweni, and she was 42 years old. She was taken to Prince Alfred's Park. He sodomized and strangled her. Now, as if that wasn't bad enough, he proceeded to sexually assault her with a knife. A forensic pathologist testified at Wilken's trial, stating that the wound was star-shaped, meaning it was as if someone stuck it in, pulled it out, stuck it in, and pulled it out again, repeatedly. And 20 stab wounds were counted. This was characterized as wild knife stabbing. Wilken also cut off her nipples and ate them at the scene. Her clothing was thrown at a near pond, and she was just left there. On September 25, 1995, Wilken murdered his 10-year-old daughter, Wane, which I'll tell you more in detail about just now. On May 25th, 1996, he solicited a 22-year-old prostitute named Katrina Clausen at the Albany Road interchange. They went to the beach, where Wilken shoved a piece of plastic down her throat so that she wouldn't scream, sodomized and strangled her. Somewhere between May and August of 1996, he met another street child, whom he took to Fort Frederick. After the boy masturbated him, Wilken told the boy to undress and proceeded to sodomize him. The boy threatened to tell the police, so Wilken strangled him. But it was clear that he was going to kill him anyway. He then proceeded to hide the body. Wilken later told Sergeant Northsworthy that he returned to the bodies of the boys to rub butter and vinegar on their feet to avoid police dogs catching their scent. And he would roll up pieces of newspapers, stick them up the boys' anuses so he could come back later on to perform necrophilia on the decomposing bodies. Wane, which is Stewart's daughter, was last seen with Stewart on September 25th, 1995. When he came to visit her at the mother's house. He had already been married to his second wife for 5 years at this time. Wane allegedly expressed to her father that her stepfather, which was the mother's new husband / boyfriend, was molesting her, and that there was sometimes not enough food in the house, and that she also wanted to run away. Wilken took her to Happy Valley, where he himself had the happiest childhood memories. And here, this is where Wilken inspected Wane's vagina and determined that she was no longer a virgin. He wanted to save her from the kind of life that he was living, and strangled her, thereby sending her soul to God. He also claimed that that was his same intention with his last victim, Henry Bakers, who he also claimed was being abused at home. On January 22nd, 1997, a boy named Henry Bakers went missing. His mother was not concerned, as Henry would often go and visit his grandmother, who lived in nearby Missionville, which was a walking distance from where his mother's house was, which was in Algoa Park. However, when Henry did not return home Thursday evening, his mother began to feel uneasy. And to make things worse, when she went over to her mother's house Friday morning, the mother said that Henry had left for home on Wednesday already, meaning Henry had been missing for 2 days. The Child Protection Unit was called and Sergeant Ursula Bernard was put on the case. She discovered that Henry was at his mother's house on Wednesday and later went outside to play with a friend. The said friend told the sergeant that he and Henry were playing and he had to go and buy milk for his parents. And later on that day, he saw Henry with a man named Stewart Wilken. When he went to ask Henry where he was going, Henry proceeded to tell him that it was none of his business. Wilken was known by both Henry and Ellen Bakers, which is Henry's mother, and had also lived at Ellen's mother's house when he had marital problems. Because Henry did not have a fixed address, it was kind of hard for Sergeant Bernard to find him. But what she did find out is that Henry's daughter had went missing and that there were 2 sodomy charges against him in connection with Veronica's 2 sons. And these charges were pressed by his parents-in-law. He was arrested and later released on the grounds of a fake alibi. He was rearrested the 31st of January 1997, where the CPU approached Sergeant Derek Northsworthy from the Murder and Robbery Unit. He had been trained by South Africa's first psychological profiler, Dr. Mickey Pistorius, who coincidentally was Oscar Pistorius' aunt. Wilken introduced himself as Boetie Boer. After some time and interrogation, with the 2 pictures of Henry Bakers and his daughter Wane, Henry stretched out his hands and said, quote, "I am sick." Don't you think we know that, sir? And he then admitted to both killing them and confessed that he had just returned to Henry's decomposing body that morning to commit an act of necrophilia. Stewart said that he met Henry in Algoa Park, and Henry allegedly asked Wilken about sex. Wilken took him to an open field in the outskirts of Algoa Park. He told the boy to take off his pants and then proceeded to perform fellatio on the boy. He then told Henry to lie on his back and Wilken proceeded to sodomize Henry. And while Henry cried and protested, Wilken strangled him and ejaculated while he died. I can't, Stewart Wilken appeared in court on February the 3rd, 1997, where he was charged with the murders of his daughter and Henry Bakers. Over the months, more charges were added as police started to connect the dots, and the final charge listed 10 counts of murders and 5 counts of sodomy. Both Dr. Mickey Pistorius and Professor Tuvio Zabo testified, stating that there was no possible way to rehabilitate Stewart Wilken. During one of Dr. Pistorius' testimonies, Wilken asked to be excused to go to the bathroom, then proceeded to indicate to Sergeant Northsworthy that he was going to masturbate. Wilken's defense did not contest 7 of the murder charges and 2 of the sodomy ones, while they said that the other charges did not have enough evidence. With that being said, Mr. Justice Chris Janssen concurred and found Stewart Wilken guilty of 7 counts of murders and 2 counts of sodomy on the 20th of February 1998. On the 23rd of February, he was sentenced to 7 terms of life imprisonment, and Mr. Justice Chris Janssen said that Stewart Wilken had to be removed from the community and that if the death penalty was eligible, he would have handed that down to him, as he showed absolutely no remorse during the trial. Wilken's wife, Veronica, attended all the court proceedings and they reconciled, and after the sentence was passed, they parted with a passionate kiss. After you heard everything that this man has done, you're gonna kiss him. Ma'am. Sergeant Northsworthy managed to track down Stewart's biological mother, who had reunited with his sister just shortly after she had disappeared. She asked the sergeant to tell Stewart that she did not abandon him and that she loved him despite all of his crimes, and when Stewart heard this, he broke down. He called her mommy on the phone when they spoke, a name which she could not even remember saying. Stewart is currently at St. Albans prison, where he is tormented by hallucinations and delusions of persecution. He believes that the ghosts of his victims are haunting him. That serves you right. And Dr. Pistorius feels that being unable to play the role of the aggressor, he has moved back to playing the victim. This case was a lot. And personally, I don't believe that because of your upbringing, you will turn out to be a certain type of person. But in this case, it's not justifiable. He's insane. But to some extent, I really feel like if he had not went through what he had went through, he wouldn't have become this type of person. So, guys, please subscribe now to my channel. Press that like button because I have better lighting. Drop a comment down below about other true crime cases that you want me to cover. Share the link, share with your friends, let them come, and so they can all watch me, Ubuhle.benkosiiiii, on True Crime Tuesday.
My guy pretty like a girl, and he got 5 stories to tell. See both sides like Chanel, see on both sides like Chanel.